Self-sovereign identity, from centralized state services to Web3.
Welcome everyone. So we're going to be talking about self-sovereign identity and how it relates to digital IDs from the spectrum of complete decentralization to complete centralization. And with us here, we have Matthias Mende, who is the founder of Bonuz Markets. We have Dr. Tanja Dimitrijevic, is that right? Yes. Who is legal counsel at Acre. And Dr. Arushi, I forgot your last name, Arushi.
What stage is the...
Goel, who is in charge of policy on blockchain at the World Economic Forum. Before we get started, if we could each have each panel member introduce themselves and their interest related to the area. So, Matthias.
Hello everyone. So, my name is Matthias Mende. I'm a co-founder of the Dubai Blockchain Center, and I'm the founder of Bonuz Market. Bonuz Market, it's a Web3 social engagement platform. And to the subject today, we also have our own self-sovereign identity. We call it a decentralized digital identity, which connects with all the socials. And it's a very, very important part of our ecosystem.
Hi, so my name is Tanja Dimitrijevic. I'm a legal counsel at Acre Group. We are heavily involved in crypto and forex industry, both from the technology point of view and also as operating within the sector. I got involved in blockchain in 2018, once the first laws in Malta came into force. So I've been heavily involved in this industry for the past 5 years.
Thank you. I'm Arushi. I'm with the World Economic Forum, where I lead data policy and blockchain. By profession, I'm a lawyer, but right now a lot of focus is on the policy aspects of things. So we do a lot of work engaging with the relevant stakeholders, both on the public sector and the private sector side, to look at the various aspects as we move from centralization to decentralization. Thank you.
Excellent. So I'll start with you, Tanja. So you've been in the space for a while, working on regulating crypto-related actors and service providers. Based on your experience, what would you say are the challenges that players in the space, crypto players, have when it comes to known identities of who they're interacting with? What does the jurisdictional regulation think about? We have to know them.
So basically, I think it's kind of twofold. So the challenges are both from the user point of view, but they're also from the regulated entities point of view. So what was happening is that, first of all, the blockchain regulation was kind of new for everyone. And there was a challenge of trying to educate the sector on the regulation which was applicable to them. And the main regulation, if we're talking about the identity, is actually the anti-money laundering legislation. And it's basically, simply said, it obliges all the regulated entities to know who they are transacting with. In other words, to identify and verify the identities of the individuals. That would mean that they have to collect all the personal data of their users. And the extent of that data is quite a lot. So basically, from the AML point of view, you would need to understand where the funds are coming from, or you would need to understand the jurisdictions where these people are coming from, or you need to understand the age of your users. But I think what happens is that you're collecting and storing way more data than that. But to answer your question, so the most important thing was that in order to carry out any transaction, or in order for a user to access the services, there needs to be an identity check, which can take quite a long time.
Okay, so that's the current state of affairs from the regulatory point of view. Matthias, being a platform provider in this space, ignoring the regulatory requirements, how important is it for your operations to have known identities that you're interacting with when it comes to the actual users of the platform?
It's extremely important because we are doing social engagement, and somehow we need to track the actions of the participants. So we are not exactly the type of DID which connects with your government ID, with your passport, with your driving license. No, we connect with all the socials, And then the users who do certain type of online work or engagements online, we can much easier identify them, and the communities or brands where the users belong to, they can kind of trace their moves online, whatever they do, and this way they can reward them, and this way a lot of new products come up, and also people, they get more like social ratings, and this is a type of rewards which come as like redeemable NFTs, like gift vouchers, small things like value versus value, like barter, not money. Money, it's the wrong incentive, and this way communities and users can't cheat so much. There's still maybe a slight chance of corruption, but it's not that big.
And to understand, so the identification of the users isn't necessarily to their identity in the real world, or is it?
It can be if they connect their DID with like a KYC kind of token. Yep. Like, for example, if they put the Binance Soulbound token into their Web3 wallet, then it kind of verifies that they are not from some sanctioned country, for example, without disclosing all the privacy information. Because the BAPT, Binance Account Bound Token, for example, it will only be given to users which verified on Binance Europe, like Binance.com. So they are not from the US, from maybe some sanctioned countries. So, okay. Yes.
So it's the platform is configurable according to the demands of how identifiable they need to be. You can either...
Exactly. So the DID is the gateway. It's the first step, because like this, everything can be authenticated. Plus, the very important part is, since we are going into the metaverse and a digital future, users, they will need to have a proof of humanity, because now you can prompt ChatGPT in some ways to act like a moderator or to act like a bakery shop seller or something like that. And basically, we might not identify who is the real human and who not in the future. So a proof of humanity, it's also important to kind of couple to the DID, but not as complicated as the passports. That's why we will connect with other DIDs and give them the entertainment and digital features where we interconnect. So multi-digital identities. It's a new approach. I kind of invented it, but it's interesting.
Excellent. Sounds very interesting. So, Arushi, what's your take on this, specifically with regards to the regulation of crypto assets, stablecoins, and service providers?
Yeah. Thanks, Joshua. So, identity is, of course, very, very foundational, right? Both Tanja and Matthias has also explained how it's an enabling factor to doing multiple transactions over a period of time. I believe each of us, having entered this venue, had to provide some form of ID, right? Whether it was an Emirates ID, whether it was our passport, to get access and to sit here and to be able to do what we're doing. So having said that, when it comes to crypto assets, stable coins, there's a general trend among countries, and something we were just discussing actually, is the trend of licensing service providers. We are seeing increasingly countries putting out frameworks where they mandate the service providers, the likes of exchanges, custodians, broker-dealers, to get licensed by a regulatory authority. And the key demand that a regulator makes is, and this is again a bit of a top-down because it's a FATF travel rule, right? A key demand that the regulator makes is you get the information of the people who transact on your platform, the information of the originator and the beneficiary. And that information invariably ties up with digital ID. Right now, I think most platforms just tend to take your government IDs. There's no real concept of a digital ID. But I believe as we evolve with the technology, with the adoption, that's where we'll eventually go.
So, Tanja, back to you. So, self-sovereign identities give us much more control as individuals and take away the control from the centralized actors. Now, there is a trade-off with that. And the trade-off is that sometimes we can't act as quickly if there's a centralized actor that could act. Let's say you don't have access to you're unconscious or whatever it may be. Somehow you can't act. What legal provisions do you think need to be thought about in order to have self-sovereign identity, but still have the agility to act when required?
I don't think I have the full answer to this because I can't predict what's going to happen. But as you rightly said, like the self-sovereign identity means that you are in complete control of your information. It also means that you should be the only person that has the private keys, right, to that information. And then take this as well. So in the situation in which you cannot access this information, right, and you really need to, are situations of emergency, right? So one of the solutions that you could have is that you could give some sort of power of attorney to someone, to a trusted third party who would be able to give access to this information instead of you. But the problem here is the speed in which someone can actually do that, right? So finding who is the person that can actually do this for you. Another way would be to create legislation in which we would have specific situation in which the government or the authority will have the access to that information. But even that, I do believe that it's going to be a very big challenge to actually identify what those situations are. And again, also you need to limit the information that you'll be providing. So I'm not seeing this as an easy thing to do.
Yeah, because I guess often we see the space as completely decentralized or completely centralized, and we need to look towards some balance that actually works.
Exactly. I mean, I am a very big fan of decentralization, but we need to keep some level of centralization in all of this. I don't know how we're going to achieve this.
I totally agree, and some level of centralization has to be there in some ways in order to also protect the system and the other users. Because if it's too decentralized, then also people, they can probably do bad things and they can't be stopped. But for this, we also figured out a solution how we can penalize users in the system which do something bad. And it's very simple because it depends how the smart contracts are developed. But if you have like a red card kind of NFT, it's a soul-bound NFT. So if you send this type of NFT to somebody's wallet as the issuer of the NFT, you are able to remove this NFT too from his wallet. But if a user broke some rules and he basically behaved bad in the metaverse or in the real world, then he simply don't get access to certain functions because of this soul-bound NFT sitting in his wallet, which he can't remove.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So kind of building on that, so you have some entities who are giving, taking away, there's some control. Now, when we think about complete self-sovereign identity and access to our data, we need our private keys. We need to be able to use our private keys. But my mum is not going to be able to do this. The masses out there are not going to be able to do this. What do you think about how do we bring SSID, some balance, to the masses?
Well, very surely the people who create their own digital identity, they need to have multiple type of logins to authenticate this DID. And the Web2 route, it's very good, but it needs also to really create a private key, like self-custody, you know, like that it's decentralized. And with Web3 out, this is, for example, possible because it allows to use like Apple ID or Google login, and this would create then a multi-sig wallet, and a part of the multi-sig is then, it's the Web2 Google login, for example. And if the user wants to make it totally decentralized, he can just take the private key out and put another private key of a MetaMask or a very easy wallet in, and then the problem is also solved for the beginner and the specialist who wants total self-custody.
That's right. So we can leave it up to the users and have these two different worlds. But I wonder if there's somewhere in between where the two worlds can meet someday, but we'll see. Arushi, we often think about policy as a one-size-fits-all around the globe. And forget about geopolitical and cultural differences. What do you think is the impact of what regulatory frameworks will have when it comes to DIDs and SSIDs to have them working around the globe with a single SSI DID? What do we need to see?
Right. That's a really good question, Joshua. And in fact, I think very difficult to achieve as well. getting all countries together to work on something, historically, it has been a mixed bag. We've seen some successes, but we've seen more compromises and probably more failures. Having said that, I think as we move more and more towards digitalization, we will see a need for something like a digital ID that everyone recognizes and harmonizes with. Be that related to remittances, be that related to disbursal of humanitarian aid, be digital trade. We already are talking about electronic trade and how we can define identities within that electronic trade, not for a person, not for a human, but for a legal person as well. We'll probably need identities for them as well. So I think as a first step, as always with any policy, we really need to know what outcomes we want to achieve. Why are we doing this? Why do we need a digital ID that works for everyone? Is it for efficiency? Is it for security? Is it for inclusion? Is it for all the three? So those outcomes need to be really well defined. Secondly, I think we need to have a framework where we have our taxonomies, digital, decentralized, self-sovereign. What do those words mean? They might mean different things to different people. So we need to have some level of a baseline harmonization of what do these terms mean. And then we have global bodies, we have consortiums, we have a lot of alliances. I'm sure all of them can work together to evolve a framework or a system that works.
Matthias, did you want to get on that or no? Okay.
I agree only. I can only agree.
Excellent. So just like passports, identities, we need interoperability. And this is an open question for you all, and standardization. Now, it seems that there are some emerging DID and SSID standards, de facto standards emerging. And what is your opinion? What will help to get successful deployment, adoption, and ultimately DIDs and SSIDs that we'll actually be using in 5 to 10 years' time?
What we need, first of all, is education, right? So we need to educate users, we need to educate the industry, and we need a good communication between the industry and between the regulators, which I think is something that's lacking at the moment, right? I don't think we will achieve the perfect standardization ever, and I don't think we should, because this is an emerging technology, right? So I think we'll be looking into many different standards over the years. But I do believe that the most important thing that we can do is actually start working together and start having this very good communication so that at least as soon as possible we reach some good standards.
Arushi?
So interoperability is kind of really important when it comes to your blockchain or any cross-border network, right? You want wholesale CBDCs to work across jurisdiction, you need interoperability. Historically, again, I tend to love taking examples of what's happened before. Historically, whether it be telecom, whether it be internet, Web 2, if you look at how the technical standards have evolved, it's usually the industry. It's not regulators. It's not policymakers. I don't think they have a place in it. It's the industry that comes together and says, this is what exists, this is what benefits our business models, and this is what the users will adopt. So I think on the technical side, the industry needs to take the lead and come up with these standards of interoperability. On the policy side, when it comes to, okay, as a nation, what do I want to achieve? Like I said, again, similar things. Do I want to be more secure? Do I want to be more inclusive? Those are the things that I think policymakers can help with. But if you engage the policymakers on technical standards, I don't see that as a very good outcome.
Matthias?
As there are so many use cases in the DIDs, in social use cases, humanitarian use cases, governmental use cases, telecommunication use cases, there are so many. So I believe that there will be, it will be interoperable, but I believe that there will be different type of DIDs which then somehow connect also together as a one super DID. That's probably it. And I think in 5 years, everybody must have one. And I even believe that one of the authentication layers will be not even a Web 2 login or Web 3 login. It will be the face. The face will be one part of the consensus to actually access the DID and or even the DNA in the blood. So I believe that's exactly where it's going. And then it will be either the state of surveillance or the state of more rewards through engagement and valuable actions towards humanity.
In fact, when I asked the question, I said, ignore cultural differences and geopolitical differences. The reality is, if you look at research, different places, depending upon their cultural background, prefer or do not prefer decentralization or centralization, and it tends to do better. So maybe we do need to start thinking about how do we have these different systems across the globe working together. So any closing thoughts? Or if we have a question over here.
I would like to point out that people are getting older. In my country, population over 65 is almost 30%. How you will, with your ideas, support them that can use this modern way of identification? Do you have any ideas? You will make some service or someone, you know, that means 2 billion on the world. And it's not easy for us, for them. So what is your idea?
Absolutely, and that's a very good question. So how to basically make it easy? So to make it easy, it's to use the technologies of the phone and like Web2 logins in the beginning to really make it super, super easy that even the UIs and the UX, they just need to be 1-2 clicks, that people don't have all those complications with being forced to store their seed phrases where they by mistake maybe take a screenshot or write it on a paper and then lose it. It needs to be super, super easy. The simplicity, it's the key, and that's one of the big challenges, how to simple it down and simple it more down. It comes with some maybe security risks, but as I said before, I believe in the future, once it's with face recognition, and this face recognition might be connected to some more governmental decentralized identity, then this is the verification which nobody can really cheat on unless he kind of cuts somebody's head off and use it, you know. But this is crazy, but, you know, Black Mirror style, you know.
Excellent. Thanks, Dr. Arushi Goel, Dr. Tanja Dimitrijevic, Matthias Mende. Thanks, everyone.